But remember, Prince William set Harry these very, very clear red lines, and he crossed every single one of them.
This isn't a family row anymore. This is institutional surgery.
Oh no, it will be active. It won't just be, I'm ignoring this. It will be, your titles are stripped, you are gone, you are back.
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill.
That about, was he looking for a hookup? Was he looking for a, what's it called when you pick up drugs? See, I'm such a goody two-shoes. It was, he's looking for something.
Not monetize family conversations, private phone calls, intimate letters, family grievances, and then expect the institution to protect you.
No one blames these two poor children. I mean, I was listening to Maureen Callahan the other day predict that she thinks, eventually these two will move as far away from Harry and Meghan as possible. And that's certainly a possibility. I mean, if I were them, I would grow up and I'd think, oh my God, you stole the opportunity for me to live history. You stole the opportunity for me to meet and spend time with the greatest monarch that has ever lived in Queen Elizabeth II.
Every leaked detail, every revelation in his book, every interview wasn't just a family betrayal. It was a constitutional hemorrhage.
Very aggressive PR for the Sussexes, got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it.
Tom Bower, the royal biographer who never swings and misses, is sharpening his pen again. And this time, the push isn't coming from tabloid noise or palace rumor. It's coming from William. Sources close to the discussions describe a moment where William stops treating Harry like a wayward brother and starts treating him like a structural threat. The message is blunt. Act now, or watch the monarchy bleed credibility for the next 10 years.
And if you look at his face, really look at it, you don't see grief, you see relief. The relief of a man who's just watched a problem he couldn't solve be solved for him, legally, finally, permanently.
This isn't a messy family disagreement anymore. This is what happens when an institution decides it needs to cut out infection to survive. What's unfolding isn't drama. It's surgery. Bower has now said something out loud that the palace would have preferred stayed buried forever. Because once you hear what he claims is happening behind closed doors, between William and Charles, you'll understand why this story isn't simmering anymore. It's about to detonate. Look closely at William's expression, and it doesn't read like grief. It reads like relief. The relief of someone watching a problem he couldn't solve emotionally get solved administratively. Not messy, not public, just final.
What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was chaired as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty and all the values of the Queen and all the tradition and 1,000 years of history.
There's a photo circulating, William beside his father in the palace corridor. And the striking thing isn't sadness. It's that same quiet relief, the kind that shows up when something painful has finally moved from impossible to inevitable. And here's the chilling part. This doesn't look symbolic anymore. This looks like the monarchy's self-preservation mechanisms kicking in, recognizing a threat and moving to neutralize it.
William is a very strong-minded guy. He's not someone you want to mess with. He's not someone you want to cross.
What Bower is describing isn't a family falling apart. It's a controlled operation, calculated, deliberate, and, he suggests, far closer than anyone outside those walls realizes. According to Bower, the palace isn't considering Harry's status anymore. They're formalizing it, and that word matters. Not under review, not being discussed, formalized. The kind of language institutions use when the decision is already made.
Monarchy survives by being more ruthless than its critics, more disciplined than its challengers, more committed to its own perpetuation than any individual is committed to personal happiness.
And the paperwork is just catching up, because the monarchy doesn't survive by being warm. It survives by being disciplined. More ruthless than the critics expect, more committed to continuation than any individual, is committed to personal happiness. That's the bargain it's always made.
He exists, but he doesn't exist. Present in blood, absent in function. That's what constitutional quarantine looks like.
Bauer says documents are being prepared to make Harry's role unmistakable, present by blood, absent by function. Not a dramatic expulsion, something colder, a constitutional quarantine, still on paper, but removed from the institution's living system. So what does that mean in real terms?
Archie and Lilibet, that one day they could just walk in as like these Californian teenagers at 18 years old and say, give me a job, William. It's not going to happen.
It means in the darkest scenarios, those contingency plans the palace never speaks about, protocol would step over Harry as if he isn't there, not ceremonially, operationally, as if the system has already decided he can't be part of the chain again. And that's the point. This isn't pageantry. It's the institution isolating what it sees as risk before that risk spreads. For years, the palace survived on ambiguity.
Oh, well, I do feel that Meghan's building this empire of perception. It's not actually what the talent is, it's more the smoke and mirrors.
Letting the public argue over whether Harry was in, out, or still potentially returnable. But that silence didn't calm anything. It fed speculation until the speculation became the dominant storyline, and a private family crisis mutated into a constitutional gray zone that hung over the monarchy for half a decade.
Even want Harry at his coronation. I mean, that is extraordinary. That shows you how far things have fallen.
What Bauer is really saying is that Charles may be preparing to end the entire era, not with soft diplomacy, not with carefully phrased holiday statements, but with law, with precision, the kind that doesn't invite negotiation. This is constitutional quarantine. Identify the threat, isolate it, and move forward without looking back.
His complete disgust at his own brother is actually something that probably eats away at him even more.
But here's where Bauer's reporting turns genuinely explosive. He claims this isn't being driven by Charles's instincts as a father. It's being driven by William's instincts as an heir. People present, Bauer says, describe a specific moment. William sits down with his father and makes it stark. Deal with Harry now, or watch the monarchy bleed legitimacy for another 10 years. And the logic, as Bauer frames it, is almost clinical.
Professionally, they've gone down dramatically, and I predicted it in the book, but even I would not have thought it'd be that accelerated. I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
William's children have to inherit a monarchy that's stable, legally clean, and free of contradictions that have dominated the public conversation since 2020. That's why sidelining isn't enough. Harry can't just be kept at arm's length. He has to be removed from the operational machinery entirely. There's a calculation here that's almost ruthless in its clarity. In a moment like this, it's better to be feared for decisiveness than loved for ambiguity. And after months of what Bauer's sources describe as genuine personal agony, Charles is said to have agreed.
There's a calculation here that's almost Machiavellian in its clarity. Better to be feared for your clarity than loved for your ambiguity.
But it's costing him, visibly, in a way you can read in public if you know what to look for. There's a weariness in Charles now that doesn't just look like age or illness. It looks like the aftermath of a decision no parent is built to make. This is a man preparing to choose the crown over his own child, and he understands the weight of that choice in a way no briefing note could ever translate.
Ignore them if they keep popping up doing stuff like this. That's the thing. We're kind of in a mutually abusive, toxic relationship, aren't we? The media and Harry and Meghan, because they keep doing stuff wanting attention. Then they get quite adverse reaction most of the time. Then they react really badly to the reaction. And so it goes on.
Well, what it really boils down to is the threat they offer.
And every leak, every private detail turned into content, has forced that choice into sharper and sharper focus. William, by contrast, looks almost calm, because for him this was never emotional. It's strategic. He's staring down the next half-century and deciding he cannot rule with this unresolved contradiction hanging over everything. And one day, George will sit on that throne. William has decided George inherits stability.
Nothing prepared him for the requirement to choose the crown over his child. Every leaked phone call, every private letter made public, every family conversation sold to streaming services.
Not chaos. He's making the hard decision now, so neither he nor his children ever have to make it again. And Bauer describes that logic as bordering on Machiavellian, better to be respected for decisiveness than pitied for sentiment. So what actually forced their hand? Bauer's answer is blunt. It wasn't one single moment, not Oprah alone, though that sped things up, not Netflix alone, though it hardened positions. It was something deeper. Harry broke the basic contract that makes constitutional monarchy function. You don't get to keep royal privilege while rejecting royal duty. You don't get to monetize the private inner life of the institution, then demand protection from the consequences. Because every memoir revelation, every sit-down interview, every leaked detail wasn't just personal betrayal.
And he wants to really push aside anyone who's been freeloading or using their titles for commercial gain. It's a reform play by William, I think. He just wants to keep it a very tight monarchy, but also he wants to reward the people who do actually do
It was institutional breach. The monarchy's remaining power rests on mystique, an unspoken agreement that some things happen behind closed doors and stay there. And when that contract holds, the institution holds. But Harry didn't just violate it. He broadcast the violation worldwide and got paid for it. And mystique can't survive once the inside becomes a live stream. What power the monarchy has left comes from that mystique. And mystique dies the moment the machinery is made content. Bauer says the palace tried the traditional fix first, dignified silence. But that strategy was built for an era when Buckingham Palace controlled the information environment, and when the worst a disgruntled royal could do was one interview. Harry changed the equation. Netflix, Spotify, publishing deals, a global platform, and an appetite for disclosure that shattered the old model. The palace's greatest asset, silence, became its most dangerous vulnerability. And that's why Bauer argues something structural is now in motion. While Charles agonizes, Bauer suggests Camilla supplies what the institution needs most: spine. The argument, as described, is corporate in its coldness. Stop being a sentimental family. Start operating like a modern organization. Identify liabilities, neutralize threats, maintain message discipline. Don't look back. It's management consultant language applied to a 1,000-year-old monarchy, and the coldness is the point. Bauer's framing is simple. Camilla understands what Charles can barely accept. Fatherhood and kingship are now in direct conflict, and only one of them wins. There are even claims, Bauer says from multiple independent sources, that palace communication protocols already avoid raising Harry's name in certain meetings, as if the mention itself risks reopening instability. That isn't policy. That's trauma response, and it tells you how deep the damage runs behind the walls. Now Bauer raises a warning the palace may be underestimating the public reaction when this becomes official. Inside the palace, the assumption is people will understand the institutional logic and sympathize with a painful but necessary decision. Bauer thinks that's naive. Younger audiences in particular may read this not as constitutional necessity, but as cruelty wrapped in legal language. And once the hashtags take off, a counter-narrative will form faster than the palace can respond. Silence won't look like dignity, it'll look like inhumanity. And the American reaction, Bauer predicts, could be especially damaging, because Harry's life and money now sit on that side of the Atlantic. In the US, the media frame is shifting. The monarchy isn't being treated as quaint tradition. It's increasingly portrayed as an old power structure that devours its own to survive. The romantic fascination is being replaced by skepticism, and a formal move against Harry would accelerate that shift sharply. Bauer also makes a point about transparency. When the palace finally confirms this, openness won't automatically earn sympathy. Sometimes transparency just documents the fact that you're willing to sacrifice humanity to survive. And once an institution admits that out loud, it invites the question no monarchy once asked: does it deserve to survive at all? So where does Bauer think this goes? He says it's now about timing, not if. The internal consensus is locked. William's position is non-negotiable, and Charles has accepted it. The final question is presentation. If it happens, everything becomes clean on paper. Succession clarified, protocols reinforced, the institution secured. William gets what he wants. But Bower's warning is that clarity isn't the same as loyalty. Affection doesn't come from legality. It comes from perceived humanity. And executing something this clinical may win the battle of structure while losing something harder to rebuild, emotional legitimacy. William won't inherit only a throne. He'll inherit proof that the institution can survive through amputation. But the public may remember the cost of that survival as a brother's exile, and the question will linger. Was it worth it? William clearly thinks so. He's weighed the alternative, years more of ambiguity, leaks, accusations, slow erosion. And he's decided a clean break, however brutal, is preferable to a slow institutional death. Charles, Bower says, has reached the same conclusion, but it's costing him more. Because it's one thing to choose protocol on paper. It's another to live with it when the child you're choosing against is your own. And as Bower himself frames it, a monarchy that survives against the moral instincts of its people is a monarchy living on borrowed time. If the public decides the crown chose protocol over parenthood, that judgment doesn't expire. And the uncomfortable truth is, Harry isn't gone yet. But if Bower is right, and his track record suggests he often is, what's coming is something the monarchy hasn't done in modern history. And this is the bet William is making, that institutional clarity is worth more than family warmth, that the monarchy's survival justifies sacrificing a brother, that history will call it necessary, not cruel. We won't know for decades. But here's what we do know. In operational terms, Harry is being treated as erased, skipped in protocols, ignored in contingency plans, unspoken in meetings, present in blood, absent in function. That's constitutional quarantine. That's what William demanded. That's what Charles delivered. And now the only question is whether the patient survives the surgery, or whether the cure proves worse than the disease.